That was way too much coffee. I'm going to be so jittery later. Hi guys. Today we're going to go over how to write characters for creative writing. It's really important that when you start writing a short story or some piece of fiction, any creative writing that involves plot, it's really important that you take some time to think about your characters. And the reason for that is that good characters are what's going to draw your readers into your story. The thing about humans is that we're very social and we always look for the other humans. It doesn't really matter where we are or what we're doing. We always are looking for the other humans. Think about it. When you're online, when you're watching TikTok or browsing social media or watching YouTube or whatever it is that you're doing, you're connecting with other people even if it's through a screen. When you're in person, you're always looking for the other people and what they're doing. Like even think about an empty parking lot. Have you ever parked your car in an empty parking lot and then you come out of the store later and someone parked right next to you even though there are a ton of spaces that they could have picked from? It's because we always are looking for each other. And it's the same thing in your writing. People are going to look at the characters in your story and want to be pulled in by those characters. Your characters are what makes the rest of your story work. So character is very important. That's what's going to draw your readers in. That's what's going to connect them to what you're writing. And that's what's going to help readers remember the thing you wrote. The way that you write good characters, well, there's no one way, but the way that I'm going to help you write good characters is I'm going to give you a list of things to think about when you're coming up with a character for a story. And then once I give you that list, I'll sort of show you guys an example of the character that I came up with, and I'll show you my thought process and how I came up with that character. So here is my screen. All right, the first thing that you want to do is start simple. Think about your character's name. What is their name? What are their pronouns? Is it she or him? Is it someone who doesn't relate to either she or his? You decide, you're the writer, but you got to start with a name. And you might pick a name and not really think it's super important, and if you do, that's okay. Maybe you don't care what your character's name is. But sometimes you're going to write a story where the name is important. So you decide, does the name matter or not? What name did you pick? Why? What are their pronouns? Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it someone that doesn't identify with either? You decide, you're the writer. The next thing to think about is what your character looks like. So you want to think about what kind of clothing do they wear? What are their physical attributes? Are they really tall? Are they short? What does their hair look like? What kind of hair do they have? Stuff like that. And again, you might not care what your character looks like, or it might be super important for your story. Or maybe you don't know at the beginning and then later as you write you decide, but it's something you should definitely think about. What do they look like? When you close your eyes, who do you see? You also want to think about what your character sounds like. When they talk, what does it sound like? Are they very monotone and just kind of drab and don't really express a lot of feeling in their voice? Or are they super extra and their voice is all over the place? What do they sound like? Or is it something in between? It's probably going to be something in between. What kind of slang do they use? Do they have an accent? Are they from Boston? Are they from, I don't know, dude, some place with a distinct accent? Is there a certain slang that they use? If they're from NorCal, do they say hella? If they're from SoCal, is their English a little more wishy-washy? Do they use the word like a lot? You got to think about these things. What do they sound like when they talk? You want to ask yourself, what are your character's qualities? And if you don't know, a quality is sort of, I guess I don't know how to describe quality. It's something about a person. So the examples that I have here are kind, angry, easygoing, uptight. These are all qualities, right? If someone's very kind, if they're a very caring person, that's a quality that they have. If someone is angry or really intense, that's also a quality. So you decide, are you writing, like a really chill, laid-back character? Are you writing an angry character who wants revenge or who just wants to be heard and understood? Is it someone easygoing who just kind of goes with it? Are they very uptight? You decide, you're the writer. And these questions, I've ranked them in order of importance. So the further down the list we get, the more important the question is. And this is where the questions start to get really important. This is where you really need to start thinking about it. What does your character do? When they get up in the morning, where do they go? What do they do? What is their life? It doesn't have to be a job. It could be a job, but it doesn't have to be. But they do need to do something. you want to ask yourself, and this is kind of related to what they do, what are your character's interests? What motivates them? What excites them? What do they like? What matters to them? You always want to ask yourself, and you might not know this at the beginning, and it's okay if it takes you a while to figure out why your character is interesting, but you always want to try and understand what makes your character interesting. When someone reads the character that you wrote, why do they care? What makes that character appealing? What makes people want to know more? What draws people in? The single most important one is, what does your character want? Because if you look at movies, books, short stories, any really sort of creative thing with a plot to it, characters always want something. Next time you watch a TV show, you should ask yourself, what do these characters want? They always want something. Sometimes they want something really big and important. Sometimes what they want is really simple. But characters always want something. And the more you know what your character wants, the more interesting the character is going to be. So those are all things that you should ask yourself as you write a character. If you're not in my class, you can maybe just ask yourself these questions and think about them as you write. But if you are in my class, I made you a worksheet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys the process of filling out that sheet for a character that I came up with. And once we do that, then you're free to start coming up with your own characters. So let's do it. All right, so for this character, I came up with the name Jared. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't put a whole lot of thought into this name. I just, Jared seemed like a name that would work, so I just kind of went for it. It's a guy, he, his, him. And I kind of wanted him to look very unremarkable. So when I close my eyes for this character, I picture someone who's just kind of average height and has long-ish hair. He wears hoodies and old worn-out jeans. And the reason that I did that is he doesn't dress nice. I intentionally made him a character who never really looks very visually appealing. And that's because he's self-conscious. He doesn't want people looking at him. So he just wears hoodies and old jeans. He really doesn't... It's not so much that he doesn't care, it's that he just doesn't see the point in dressing up nice. He's self-conscious. What does your character sound like? How do they talk? For Jared, I went with a quiet kid. He's quiet, he doesn't talk a whole lot. When he does talk, he's polite, but he's really shy. He also sounds kind of nerdy. And we'll get into, if you watch my video on dialogue, I'll explain how do you make a character sound nerdy. Well, we'll get into that in another video, but I want him to sound nerdy, he's quiet, he doesn't talk a whole lot. His qualities, he's patient. He's a sweet person, he's very shy, and he's really, really quiet. This is more of an interest than the quality, but he gets really excited about space. He thinks outer space is really, really cool. And that is one of the few things you'll actually hear him get openly excited about. And we'll get into that further on down with this sheet. What does Jared do? Jared is an 8th grader. Jared goes to school, and then when he comes home, he just kind of locks himself up in his room. He doesn't have a ton of friends. He's a little bit of a loner. So just quiet, shy 8th grader, goes to school, comes home. That's kind of it. What are his interests? Well, I kind of went into this already in qualities. He loves space. He thinks about going to space all the time. He thinks astronauts are his heroes. He thinks about what it must feel like to be up there with the stars. He gets super excited about SpaceX and Elon Musk. He just is really into space. What makes him interesting, what I decided to go with, just to start off, is that he's actually a really funny, interesting guy if you get to know him. He seems really boring. I mean, he doesn't dress super great. But if you're lucky enough to get him to open up, you'll realize he's really funny and he's very interesting. And the important one, what does he want? He wants his parents to stop fighting. He gets really sad about how much his parents fight. It affects him at school and at home. It's always on his mind. And that's part of why he likes outer space. He wants to escape. He thinks of outer space as this place where everything is calm and beautiful and life feels good. And that's part of why he dreams of space. He wants to escape. He wants to go far away because what he wants, deep, deep down, what he really, really wants is for his parents to stop fighting. So that's Jared. And something to note about characters is that, this is what I'm going to start with. But as I write the story, and it's so cool how creative writing does this. As I write the story, he might change. He might do things that surprise me, even though I'm the one writing him. You guys are going to see this as you write your own characters. They will come to life, and they'll do things that surprise you, even though you're the one writing them. Because creative writing is just really cool like that. So that's how I built the character of Jared. And now I'm going to go create a setting for him, create the world that he lives in, and start writing some dialogue, and then see if I can come up with a story. So that's Jared. Thanks for watching. I have other videos about creative writing. This is a series, and these videos make more sense if you watch them all together. So watch my other videos. All right, bye guys.